They thought he was just some quiet guy eating alone. They didn't know they were staring at a storm in disguise. Jason Statham sat at the corner table, head down, sandwich untouched, until the insults started flying. "Hey, tough guy, what are you afraid to talk?" They laughed, loud, arrogant, like they owned the place. But Jason Statham didn't flinch. He just looked up once. Silence isn't weakness. It's warning. What followed wasn't violence. It was something far harder to forget. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. The cafeteria echoed with teenage chaos. Trays clattered, sneakers squeaked, and laughter ricocheted off metal chairs. But in the far left corner, where the light barely reached, sat a man who didn't belong. Jason Statham. Every day, same seat, same black thermos, same turkey sandwich wrapped in wax paper. He never looked up unless he had to. He spoke only when necessary. And he never, not once, smiled. Not in the 2 months since he took the janitor job at Mill Creek High. Nobody knew why he was there. Some said he'd been in the military. Others swore he was some kind of private security guy who snapped after a mission went wrong. One rumor had him working for the Secret Service until he disappeared. The truth was simpler, but heavier, and Jason wasn't the kind of man to share it. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. The students gave him a nickname, Ghost, not out of fear, just unfamiliarity. He was there, but not really. Always moving through hallways like a shadow, fixing broken heaters, unclogging sinks, sweeping up after lunch, never making a sound. But if you watched closely, really watched, you'd notice something else, like how he bent down slowly when a student dropped their books, or how he mopped around a kid asleep at a lunch table instead of waking them, or how he placed lost notebooks and sketch pads on the exact desks they came from. Even when no one saw him pick them up, he wasn't invisible. He was intentional. Still, most of the school didn't care. That was the thing about high school. Loud ruled. Loud meant popular. Loud meant power. And no one was louder or meaner than the varsity seniors. They called themselves the Wall. For boys, always together, always laughing at someone else's expense. Their leader, Brett, had that cocky football strut, the loud laugh that demanded attention. If he didn't like you, the whole school didn't like you. That's just how it worked. To Brett, Jason Statham was the ultimate joke. A grown man, alone at lunch, pushing a mop like it was some kind of life mission. He didn't dress like other staff either. No school polo, no radio on his hip, just boots, a plain gray t-shirt, and jeans. Like he was always ready for something, but no one could tell what. One Friday, Brett nudged his crew. "Watch this," he whispered, smirking. They made their way toward Jason's table, loud on purpose. A hush rippled through the room, not out of respect, but anticipation. "Hey, Ghost," Brett said, tossing a crumpled napkin onto Jason's tray. "You ever gonna say something, or are you saving your voice for karaoke night?" Laughter. Sharp, cruel. Jason didn't respond. He didn't even blink. "Maybe he's mute," another said. "Or maybe he just knows he's irrelevant." Jason's hand paused mid-bite. For 1 second, he looked up, just 1 second. That look? Cold, unapologetic, not angry, not scared, just unbothered. Then he went back to eating. Brett's grin faltered. Just a hair, but he covered it with another joke. "Whatever, man, enjoy your sad sandwich." They walked off, laughing harder than the joke deserved. At the front of the cafeteria, Miss Calder watched it unfold from behind her clipboard. She was new too, young, sharp-eyed, and already tired of the school's pecking order. She hadn't figured Jason out yet, but she respected him. There was something steady about him, like a tree in the middle of a tornado. Later that day, she found him in the hallway fixing a leaky locker. "They shouldn't talk to you like that," she said quietly. Jason glanced at her. "It's not about me." "Well, it feels like it is." He tightened the bolt. Bullies look for responses. Don't give him one and they get confused. Still, you could say something. He looked up. "And say what? That their noise doesn't impress me? They already know. That's why they're yelling." Ms. Calder said nothing. She just nodded slowly, then walked away. But something about his words stuck with her for the rest of the day. In the days that followed, the tension grew. Jason kept eating in the same seat, the same turkey sandwich, the same silence, the same calm. But the bullies weren't finished, not by a long shot. And what none of them knew was this. Jason wasn't avoiding a fight. He was waiting for the right moment to teach something far more dangerous than fear. He was about to teach truth. It started with a sandwich. Jason Statham sat at his usual table, halfway through a bite, when Brett made his move again. This time, it wasn't just talk. It was loud, public, filmed. Brett swaggered through the lunchroom like he owned it, phone in hand, his friends trailing behind, hyping him up. Every step they took, more eyes turned. Everyone loved the show. "Yo, Ghost!" Brett shouted across the room. "Still working that glamorous mop life? You cleaning tables with your tears now, or just boredom?" Jason didn't look up. The phone was already recording. "Come on, man," Brett said, reaching the table. "I'm trying to make a documentary here. It's called How to Fail at Life Without Saying a Word. Starring you." Laughter rippled out like wildfire. Jason paused. He wiped his hands slowly with a napkin and folded it in half. Still, he said nothing. Brett leaned in, lowering his voice just enough for the camera to pick it up. "What's the matter? Too scared to speak? Or too dumb to matter?" He snatched Jason's sandwich, holding it up like a trophy. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have here the saddest lunch in America. Plain turkey, no mustard. A sandwich as boring as its owner." Jason stood, not fast, not threatening, just steady. He reached out and gently took the sandwich back, then set it down on the tray. And that's when Brett shoved the tray to the floor. Everything crashed, thermos, sandwich, tray, all at once. Milk pooled on the ground, dripping off Jason's boots. The lunchroom went silent. You could feel the tension tightening like a wire across the room. Jason knelt, picked up the sandwich, wiped off the thermos. No rush, no reaction. Brett's smirk wavered. "What's wrong, Ghost? Cat got your dignity." Jason finally looked at him. Just one long, still stare. Brett looked away first. Phones were still recording. Ms. Calder rushed in, voice sharp. "That's enough. Brett, office. Now." Brett tried to laugh it off. "We were just joking." "Office. Now." As he walked out, Brett looked back over his shoulder, trying to reclaim his confidence. Better clean that up before someone slips janitor. Jason knelt again, this time to wipe the floor. The bell rang. By that night, the video was everywhere. It had a title, "When the Janitor Gets Bullied and Doesn't Blink." 12,000 views before midnight. 32,000 by morning. Students replayed it again and again, analyzing the moment Jason stood up. The calm, the stare, the power in not reacting the way Brett wanted. Some laughed, but some didn't. A quiet shift began. Freshman kids started nodding to Jason in the halls. One girl left a sticky note on his cart that read, "You're awesome." A junior from the track team, usually loud and oblivious, handed Jason a new thermos in the morning. "Heard yours cracked. Figured you could use a fresh one." Jason didn't say thank you. He just nodded, because he understood something they were only starting to learn. Sometimes silence was louder than rage. In the staff lounge, Ms. Calder brought it up. "They're talking about you now. The students. Even the ones who usually don't talk to anyone." Jason poured himself coffee. "Let him talk." "You really don't care?" He looked up. "I care what they learn, not what they say." She paused. "And what do you want them to learn?" Jason's answer came slow, measured. That holding power and using it are two different things. She watched him sip his coffee like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just become the most talked-about man in the district. But under that calm was something else. Not rage. Something older, deeper, purpose. The next day, nothing changed on the surface. Same sandwich, same corner table, same silence. But under the surface, a war was beginning. Not the kind with fists, the kind with perception. the kind with meaning. And Jason Statham, without saying a word, had just thrown the first punch. By Monday, the lines had been drawn. Quietly, unofficially, but real. Some students took Brett's side, saying Jason was just an old man looking for sympathy. It's not that deep, they claimed. It was just a joke. They laughed louder in the hallways now, like they were trying to erase what happened by drowning it out. But others didn't laugh anymore. They started noticing the small things Jason did. How the hallway outside the special education room was always spotless. How a broken vending machine that sat ignored for weeks was suddenly working again. How every locker that jammed just once somehow stopped jamming after he passed by. He never said anything, never asked for thanks. He just fixed things. And slowly the school began to split. You were either laughing louder or paying attention. The seniors didn't like it, especially Brett. The video should have made Jason a joke, but instead it made him something worse, respected. And respect, that couldn't be mocked. So they pushed harder. They graffitied the janitor closet door with Sharpie. Ghost Boy cries here. They taped a "kick me" sign to his back during third period. He didn't even remove it, just kept working like it didn't exist. One afternoon, they filled his mop bucket with ketchup packets and mustard. Still, no response. But Ms. Calder was watching. She found Jason outside by the dumpsters, rinsing out the bucket in silence. His sleeves were rolled up, hands steady. No anger, no shaking, just calm. She stood beside him. You know it's okay to fight back. Jason glanced at her, then returned to scrubbing. And then what? I win a shouting match with teenager. It's not about winning. It's about self-respect. He looked her in the eye. Self-respect doesn't need applause. It just needs to hold the line. She didn't argue, because part of her knew he was right, but that didn't make it easier to watch. And then something unexpected happened. Tyler, the quietest of Brett's crew, started to break. It was subtle at first. He stopped laughing so hard when Brett cracked a joke. He started showing up late to their group hangouts. He sat in the back of class more, hood up, earbuds in, tuned out, because Tyler's little brother, Max, had started eating lunch in the hallway, alone, crying. Max was in 8th grade but took a few classes at the high school. He stuttered badly, got mocked for it, and every day after class, Jason walked Max to the office with quiet patience, never rushing, never interrupting. One afternoon, Tyler rounded the corner and saw it. Jason walking next to Max, who was smiling for the first time all week. Jason held the door open and patted Max's shoulder before heading back to work. He never saw Tyler watching, but it changed something. Tyler didn't say anything to Brett that day, and Brett noticed. He confronted him in the locker room. You going soft? Tyler shrugged. Maybe ghost's not that bad. Brett's eyes narrowed. Don't get weak on me, man. Tyler didn't respond, because deep down, something was shifting. A crack in the armor. Jason had said nothing to him, but somehow he'd still gotten through. Meanwhile, the school buzzed with rumors. Students whispered that Jason used to be a Navy SEAL. Others said he lived off the grid and only came to town to repay a debt. A few believed he was part of some secret government program and was laying low. But the truth didn't matter anymore, because legend had replaced it. And legends carry weight. The bullies couldn't laugh that away. They needed a big move, something dramatic, something public. That's when they came up with the pep rally plan. A perfect stage. Hundreds of students. All eyes on Jason. Their plan? Hijack the mic, play the video, and turn the whole school against him. Not with violence. With humiliation. It was their last card, and they were ready to play it. What they didn't know was that Jason Statham had seen it all coming, and he had his own kind of preparation. Not for a fight, for something far more powerful. The pep rally was a tradition at Mill Creek High. Loud music, louder cheers, and a parade of team jerseys and glitter signs. Nobody came for meaning. They came to be seen. The bleachers were packed. The gym pulsed with bass and teenage chaos. But not everyone was looking at the stage. Some watched Jason Statham. He stood near the back wall, mop in hand, cleaning up spilled soda by the bleachers. Just like always. Calm, quiet, present, but not invisible anymore. Miss Calder saw him too. She stood at the edge of the court, clipboard forgotten in her hands. Her eyes never left him. Then the music cut, and Brett took the mic. It wasn't scheduled. The cheer coach looked confused, but Brett smiled like he owned the world. "Before we kick things off," he said, his voice booming through the gym, "we got a little tribute to one of our school's most silent heroes." He pointed toward Jason. The projector flickered to life. And there it was. The video, the cafeteria, the insults, the sandwich on the floor. Students gasped. Some laughed. Others shifted uncomfortably. Jason didn't move. Brett leaned into the mic, Mill Creek. Give it up for the man who took a sandwich to the soul and lived to mop about it. Laughter exploded across one half of the gym. The other half went quiet. Then something unexpected. Jason Statham walked forward. Slow, steady. Every step echoed like a drumbeat against the polished floor. He reached the mic. Brett tried to step in front of him. Jason didn't push. He just looked, and Brett moved. The room hushed. Jason's voice was low. Gravel and gravity. "You think that was embarrassing?" he said, gesturing to the screen. "You think that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me?" Silence. "I buried my best friend 2 years ago. Watched a man save 6 lives in a burning building and lose his own. I cleaned up his blood off a concrete floor before the news vans ever showed up." He looked across the gym. Every student held their breath. "I came here to disappear. Thought, maybe if I cleaned floors, I could clean the part of myself that broke when I lost him." He paused. "But you can't mop pain away. You can only choose what to do with it." He stepped forward. "And every day, I chose not to fight back. Not because I couldn't, but because fighting doesn't change people. Listening does." Somewhere in the back, a girl began to cry. Jason continued. "Some of you think silence is weakness. You're wrong. Silence is choice. Silence is control." He looked at Brett. Silence is knowing you could destroy someone and choosing not to. The gym was dead still. Then, slowly, a single clap from Tyler. Then another. Then half the gym was on its feet. Brett stood frozen, mic forgotten in his hand. The projector shut off behind him. Screen fading to black. He walked off the stage. No one stopped him. Jason turned to leave. But Miss Calder called out softly, "Wait." He paused. She stepped forward. "Why now?" Jason gave the smallest smile. Because they were finally ready to hear it. Then he walked away, mop still in hand. That day, the gym didn't remember the cheerleaders' routine or the football chant. They remembered a man who said more in 2 minutes than most people say in a lifetime. And from that moment on, everything changed. Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone's quiet strength changed everything? Drop your story in the comments below. Someone out there might need it today. By Monday morning, the school felt different. The air was quieter. Not empty, just aware. The video of Jason's speech had gone viral. Not just on school phones, but far beyond. Local news stations picked it up. Headlines read, "Janitor's unexpected mic drop stopped school bullying in its tracks." The video hit 1 million views before lunch. But Jason Statham didn't care about views. He cared about what changed. And it was changing fast. Kids who once looked through him now nodded when he passed. Some offered to carry cleaning supplies. A few even left thank you notes on his cart, folded small like secrets. The same halls that once echoed with cruel jokes now carried whispers of respect. Brett, he disappeared for a few days. No explanations, no apologies, but Tyler stayed. And on Tuesday, he found Jason in the art wing, wiping paint off a locker handle. "Hey," Tyler said, voice small. Jason turned, rag in hand. "I wanted to say, I was part of that. The video, the jokes, all of it." Jason didn't speak. "I thought if I laughed loud enough, no one would notice how messed up things were at home," Tyler admitted. "But then I saw what you did for Max. And I realized you don't need to yell to be strong." Jason finally spoke. "How's your brother?" "Better. He asked if you'd sit with us at lunch. Jason's face didn't change much, but he nodded. Once. Tyler smiled, like something heavy had just lifted, and walked away. Miss Calder saw it all from the stairwell. She didn't say anything. She just smiled quietly to herself. Later that week, she approached Jason with a folder. "They're holding a youth leadership panel downtown," she said. "City schools. A few nonprofits. They saw the video and asked if you'd come speak." Jason shook his head. "I'm not a speaker." She smiled. "You said that before the pep rally, too." He looked down at the folder. "I clean floors. That's all." She held his gaze. "Not anymore." Jason didn't answer, but something in his eyes shifted. That Saturday, he showed up to the panel. No mic drop, no spotlight, just him, plain gray shirt, boots, same steady silence. The crowd was mostly teens, some teachers, a few reporters. Jason stepped up when called, cleared his throat once, and spoke. No theatrics, just truth. "I used to think the only way to fix the world was with noise," he said, shouting louder, fighting harder, but that just adds to the chaos. He scanned the room. What the world needs more of is steadiness. Quiet people doing good things consistently, not for attention, just because it's right. A hand went up in the back. A girl, nervous, shaking, asked, "How do you stay calm when people hate you?" Jason's reply came fast. "Because I don't carry their hate. I leave it where they dropped it." Murmurs filled the room. Soft, respectful. That line, "I don't carry their hate," would end up printed on posters in schools across the county. The speech lasted 7 minutes, but the impact lasted longer. One by one, more schools invited Jason to speak. Not because he was flashy, but because he was real. And real is rare. At Mill Creek, a new club formed, the Clean Slate Project. Tyler led it. They restored broken benches, painted murals, cleaned graffiti. Their motto? Change the tone, change the culture. Jason never joined the meetings, but he'd leave extra paintbrushes outside the supply closet every Thursday. Ms. Calder transferred the next semester. Better district, higher pay. Before she left, she gave Jason a note. "You reminded me why I became a teacher. Thank you for standing when silence felt safer." He never wrote back. He didn't need to, because she knew. And as for Brett, he came back eventually. Didn't try to reclaim anything. Just kept his head down. Moved through hallways quietly. One afternoon, he walked past Jason outside by the dumpsters. Their eyes met, just briefly. Brett nodded. Jason didn't return it. But he didn't need to. Because sometimes mercy means nothing more than letting someone try again without dragging them back to who they used to be. Spring rolled in quiet that year. At Mill Creek High, things didn't change overnight, but they changed where it mattered. The cafeteria still buzzed with energy, still echoed with teenage voices, but the corners felt safer, the hallways kinder. And Jason Statham still sat at the same lunch table, same spot, same sandwich. Only now he wasn't alone. Max sat beside him most days. Tyler, too, sometimes. Other students came and went, some talking, some just sitting nearby, soaking in the silence like sunlight. Jason never invited anyone, but he never turned them away either. It became a kind of quiet ritual, a new center of gravity, a place where stillness meant welcome. Miss Calder's old room had a new teacher, but her memory lingered. The plaque she left behind stayed screwed into the wall by the whiteboard. Courage doesn't shout. Sometimes it just shows up anyway. The principal tried once to give Jason an award, Staff Member of the Year. He turned it down. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said. "But people need to see who leads by example," the principal argued. Jason looked him in the eye. "Then lead." No bitterness. No show. Just truth. The Clean Slate Project grew. They repainted every hallway with student-designed murals. One was a portrait, simple, bold, of a man in boots, mop in hand, standing in a beam of soft light. It didn't have a name, but everyone knew who it was. Jason never commented on it, but one morning, a teacher noticed him stop in front of the mural. He stood there for a long minute, just staring, then kept walking. Another day, Jason found a letter tucked into his locker. No name, no return address, just a folded sheet of notebook paper. You don't know me, but when I was thinking about doing something I couldn't take back, I remembered what you said at the rally, that silence is choice, that I could choose something else. So I did. I'm still here because of you. Jason didn't share it with anyone. He just folded the letter and placed it into the inside pocket of his jacket. It stayed there. Every day after, at the end of the school year, the principal asked him if he'd consider becoming a mentor for at-risk students. Jason didn't answer right away. But the next Monday, he showed up an hour earlier than usual. No one asked why. They just knew. And that was how Jason Statham became more than a man with a mop. He became a cornerstone. He didn't speak often, but when he did, people leaned in. Because when someone carries themselves with that much quiet weight, you listen. Not out of fear, out of respect. And in a world addicted to noise, that silence, that still, steady presence, meant something. Something rare. Something strong. The final bell of the school year rang like it always did. Loud, clumsy, full of laughter and scraped-up sneakers pounding down crowded hallways. But Jason Statham didn't move any faster than usual. He walked the halls one last time that afternoon, pushing his cart with a squeaky wheel, the same mop he'd used since day one, resting beside it like a staff. He passed rows of lockers now painted with messages of strength and belonging, art born out of something deeper than extra credit. He stopped near the cafeteria door, watched a few kids high-five, others hug. Then he turned and sat at his usual table. Same seat, same sandwich, same silence. But this time, something was different. A folded note sat waiting on the table. No name, just taped to the surface with a piece of blue painter's tape. Jason peeled it open. For words, handwritten in pencil. You made us better. He stared at it for a long time. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just breathed. Outside the windows, the sky was starting to change. That golden, forgiving hour where shadows stretched long and everything looked softer than it did at noon. Jason stood, slid the note into his jacket pocket. Right beside the letter, he kept folded there like a second heartbeat. Then he walked outside, not toward the parking lot, not toward the noise, but toward the garden at the edge of the property. The one students from the Clean Slate Project had planted just weeks earlier. It was small, nothing flashy, but it was alive, and it was growing. Jason knelt and pulled a single weed from the edge of the mulch, then stood again. That was the thing about change. It wasn't always loud. It didn't come with applause or hashtags. Sometimes it looked like a man with a mop and a memory. Sometimes it sounded like the choice not to shout. Jason never asked to be followed, but footsteps had followed anyway. And now a whole school walked a little quieter, thought a little deeper, stood a little taller, not out of fear, out of understanding. He left the garden without saying a word, because everything that needed to be said had already been heard.